Hey everybody. Yeah, originally I was going to try to do a live stream with this, but the only way I'm going to be able to live stream for a while is through my phone. But I gotta get a stand for it eventually, or get one of those little things to help stand it up. But anyway, I wanted to come on here and give you my thoughts, just like everybody else has so far, on the debut episode this past Wednesday of All Elite Wrestling Aew Dynamite, or some call it Wednesday Night Dynamite, and thus the official beginning of the Wednesday Night Wars. This has been something that fans have been waiting for almost 20 years. I mean, there's always been alternatives that have come and gone. Some alternatives are still around, but they're not the alternative they used to be. And All Elite Wrestling basically promised that they were going to be that alternative. You know, they'd be similar in some ways, but be an alternative. They'd have the TV-14 rating, and they were going to make sure wins and losses indeed counted. And one of the ways they've emphasized this, even throughout this debut episode, was every time the name graphic came on for one of the participants, you would see the name, but on, I think they said, the right hand side, and I was surprised I didn't notice this. They would put the record of that person, that win-loss record. So, for instance, Cody is 1-1-0. You know, as he was going into his match with Sammy Guevara, the first match officially of AEW Dynamite, and they would continue this trend throughout, even with the tag teams. So anyway, the feel of the show felt big. I didn't watch the intro until the encore came on, because they did do an encore presentation. And the encore felt very, I'll put it this way, kind of a modern day version of what Monday Nitro's intro would have been like, had WCW still been around. Anyway, long story short, the presentation felt big league. Definitely felt like AEW is now the modern equivalent of WCW in its prime, if not bigger and better. It was nice to see, Tony Schiavone and Jim Ross and Excalibur on commentary. Everybody has praised them as being the best iteration of the commentary that AEW has tried out. And it was nice to see Tony Schiavone on television. As a matter of fact, they made sure that the wrestlers throughout that he would talk to would basically show the gratification that Tony is back where he belongs. Even though Tony's been working with MLW, it's not been at this capacity. And then that brings up another good question. Will Schiavone continue to work with MLW, or will they get somebody else? Because already they've lost Jim Cornette to the NWA on the side, as a side job he's going to do. And now they possibly have lost Tony Schiavone to All Elite Wrestling, unless he's worked out some kind of deal like MJF did. But anyway, the presentation was great and everything. The stage is basically the same stage, very identical to all the stages we have seen them have, depending on the location. So it's been very identical to that. Like I said, depending on the location, that is. So anyway, great crowd was on hand. It was a sellout for them. Not like the whole building was sold out, but basically what they advertised was sold out. Even though some people would say some seats were empty in certain areas, it didn't really feel like it. The first match of the night was, of course, Cody Rhodes against Sammy Guevara. Great opening match to officially kick off Dynamite for All Elite Wrestling. Both men got a chance to shine. Sammy Guevara, for those that don't know him from Lucha Underground and maybe a few appearances with MLW and Impact, really got a chance to shine here as well. There's a moment in the match where Sammy's on the outside, and as Cody's going for a suicide dive, he pulls Brandy right in front of him, and Brandy takes the brunt of it. Brandy does get payback though later on when Cody kind of slightly distracts the ref, and boom, Brandy hits Sammy with her shoe. That does not put Sammy away though after a disaster kick. Sammy hits a Spanish fly, doesn't put Cody away. Sammy tries to go for a moonsault, misses. Cody puts the knees up and then rolls Sammy up for a cradle pinfall, for a small cradle pinfall. And throughout the match, Sammy even did another kind of moonsault he was trying to do, and he missed, but he landed, and then he missed again on a second attempt when he was in the ring. And then, just to make up for it, he did a standing shooting star to, finally catch Cody during the match. But yeah, in the end, Cody wins, so he goes 2-1-1. 2 wins, -1 loss, he actually is. Cody's record now is 2 wins, -1 draw, -0 losses. And that's the other thing about the win losses as well. They made sure to emphasize how important they are. Even Cody, during the hype package they put on before this match, to not only get people to know who Sammy is, but for those that may have not seen Cody's work in WWE, which is a surprise, get to know who he is. And the importance of this, the win-loss situation, because Cody himself and the announcers, the commentary team made sure to emphasize this, has basically stated that if he ever loses between now and Full Gear, which is in November, he's out of the championship. Right now he's ranked at number 1 because of his win-loss record, which kind of makes sense. I mean, even though people might point out, well, wait a minute, he drew with Darby Allin. That doesn't make sense. So, basically, Cody gets the shot. Anyway, because he has, I think, the only win-loss record that's decent enough before this night or even after this night. So Cody ends up winning. Then we get MJ, and then the next match we get. We do get an interview with Shivani in the ring, and Cody's kind of emotional and tears and embracing Shivani. Like, this is one of the moments where Shivani gets sort of like, welcome back to where you belong kind of deal. But that's disrupted by Kavara, who wants a handshake, but it looks like he may have set up Cody, because then Jericho comes in and beats down on Cody even during the commercial, which they do a picture-in-picture of, because a picture-in-picture, you have the commercial on one hand and you have the what's going on at All Elite Wrestling Dynamite on the other. So, you may not be a fan of it, but I thought it was okay, because at least it lets you pay attention to what's going on, keeps you updated. It doesn't be like, oh, here's the replay of what happened during the night or during your commercial. It lets you see what's happening. So yeah, Jericho continues to beat Cody down, even to the point that I think he hits him with a powerbomb through two chairs. And so basically the story they're trying to tell there is Jericho's trying to make sure Cody does not make it to Full Gear. So anyway, after that we get MJF against Brandon Cutler. MJF, Maxwell J. Friedman. MJF, if you will, is widely known mostly for his time in Major League Wrestling. He does make the rounds on the Indies, but mostly for MLW. And he's also well known as the youngest Combat Zone Wrestling CZW World Champion. And he's got some kind of deal worked out right now. I don't know how long it's going to last, to where he can work both for MLW as part of the Dynasty and work for All Elite Wrestling. And you can definitely tell that he's going to be a top guy for the company, and he's going to be the kind of heel that All Elite Wrestling's really going to have to work the butts off to try to get people to hate. Because the moment his music hit, unlike with Major League Wrestling and some other areas, he got cheered. I mean, he even tried his best to insult the crowd and said, "Hey, who told you could talk during my entrance?" or something like that. So he tried everything, but the fans still loved him. Brandon Cutler was known as Brandon something else. I can't think if it was Stutter or something. But Brandon Cutler was also no stranger to the public eye because he worked for Impact Wrestling for a bit. He had that, I think, story with Ali, I believe. So it's ironic they're both in Impact Wrestling right now. It's ironic both of them in All Elite Wrestling right now. So anyway, yeah, it was a short match, mostly just to show off and really push MJF as a character. Next match. Okay, the next thing we got was a promo by SoCal Uncensored, SCU, Christopher Daniels, Scorpio Sky, and Frankie Kazarian in front of the White House. Scorpio's great on the impression of Barack Obama. Then this transitions into a live interview with them in the arena, where Scorpio basically says he's going to step away, he's going to step aside, and let the two experienced members of the team or the faction go and compete in the tag team tournament. That, of course, is Daniels and Kazarian. They get interrupted by the Lucha Brothers, and they start brawling and everything. And Tony Schiavone, once again, is interviewing STU at this time. And once again, you kind of get a little bit of a moment where Daniels, it's not Daniels, it's Scorpio Sky. It's kind of like giving, Tony like the welcome back kind of deal. But anyway, a brawl breaks out with Lucha Brothers and SCU because they're going to be meeting each other in the first round. Then later on, we got another segment with Kevin Smith and I can't think of the other guy's name from the upcoming Jay and Silent Bob reboot movie, which just happens to have Chris Jericho starring in it. They get interrupted by Angelico and Jack Evans, who are a heel tag team. They're run off by the appearance of Private Party. So we had that segment. Oh, and then the next match we had was Hangman Adam Page against Pac, or Pac, if you will. FKA Neville from WWE. Good matchup between the two. Good back and forth. Both men got a chance to really shine. And if you didn't know who Pac was back when he was Neville in WWE, especially during his last year or so there with the company when he dominated as Cruiserweight champion. If you didn't know much about him then, you now know about him here because he really brought it to Adam Page and Adam Page brought it to him. The ending came when Neville I think was blocking the dead eye and was about to run into Earl Hebner, but used Earl as sort of a shield to distract him from noticing Neville hitting a reverse mule kick or low blow with his hind leg onto Adam Page. This allowed Neville to set Adam up for the Black Arrow, formerly the Red Arrow in WWE, and then lock in the Brutalizer, the Ring of Saturn, in which Adam had to submit, or did he? Because Adam even put on Twitter, who hired Earl Hebner? So it makes you wonder. So and speaking of the win, and so going back to the win-loss situation, they've been emphasizing a lot. Pac right now, as far as I know, is the only undefeated, except for Chris Jericho, only undefeated wrestler in the men's division for the World Championship. So, yeah, he's the only undefeated wrestler. Anyway, following that, we get our matchup to crown the inaugural All Elite Wrestling Women's World Champion between Nyla Rose and Riho. Good David versus Goliath-like scenario here. They keep bringing up that Riho has a pinfall victory over Nyla, even though it was in a multi-woman match before this. And most of the time, Nyla did dominate. She really did dominate. And I was going back, and this was also one of those matches I was going back and forth because, ironically, what they were showing or trying to air simultaneously at the same time was I think they were trying to air Candice LeRae challenging Shayna Baszler for the NXT Women's Title. So they were kind of trying to air it simultaneously. Like, oh, it's like WWE's like, oh, you're gonna air your championship match? Guess what? We're gonna do this. So anyway, so yeah, they kind of I think tried to counter each other. Anyway, long story short, the match was a decent like I said, David versus Goliath like scenario with Nyla dominating most of the time, Rio getting a few shots in moments here and there, and it came down to basically Nyla making a mistake and Rio capitalizing with a couple of meteoras, as they call it, and then I think she hit a Shining Wizard not once but twice in the end to put Nyla away and become the inaugural AEW Women's World Champion. And this is a great moment, I will admit this. The crowd popped for Rio. They loved Rio, even though they were in Nyla's hometown of Washington, D.C. They popped for this. Michael Nakazawa came in, tried to interview Rio. He was happy for it because Michael Nakazawa is Japanese as well, but mostly American Japanese. No offense when I say that. And he even tried to get her to talk and comment on her victory in Japanese. And Rio's emotional. You can tell she's full of emotion because she's been given the ball and been told to run with it for the time. But as he's getting ready to have her speak in Japanese, how she feels about becoming the first AEW Women's Champion, Nyla attacks both from behind, sets Michael Nakazawa up for a sit-down powerbomb, which she can't do at first, but the second time, she just deadlifts him up and then boom, hits him with it. And then she goes after Rio, who I think she tries to get ready to powerbomb from the ring to the floor. That is until Kenny Omega shows up and saves her and prevents Nyla from doing it. And the reason Kenny showed up is because he has this connection with Riho, since Riho was one of his first intergender opponents in Japan. I think back when he was working with the DDT promotion, and she was like 9 or 10 years old. So they have a long-term friendship, and he helped train her as well. So yeah, Omega came out, kind of ran Nyla off, but it looks like now they're positioning Nyla as being a heel instead of just a babyface. I mean, at first it looked like, because at first to me it looked like, oh, they're going to make her a babyface, a big babyface, because they got Awesome Kong. But no, she's going to be a heel as well, apparently. And I think over time we're going to get more established, like who the babyface women are for AEW's women's division and who the heels are. Right now we know that the babyfaces are, as we speak, Riho, who's the champ, Britt Baker, Dr. Britt Baker, DMD, Ali, and I think for the heel, and I think Aja Kong as well. And I think for the heels we have Awesome Kong, Nyla Rose, and Bree Priestley, and Brandy. And Brandy, she's kind of on the fence. Like, you don't know if she's gonna be heel or face. Right now, I think she's leaning more towards like a heel competitor in the ring when she gets a chance. But more like she's a tweener heel. Like, she's face when she's with Cody, heel when she competes. She's kind of like in that China role that China was in when she was associated with Triple H. Like, on her own, she'd get cheered. People would love her. When she was with Triple H, she'd play a heel. So that's the kind of role Brandy's in. But anyway, yeah, Rio's the champ, and it's great they want to go with her because everybody says she's like their version of Rey Mysterio, their answer to Rey Mysterio and all that, because I think she's one of the competitors that looked up to Rey. But here's my problem with this, and I'm hoping AEW's worked this out when they brought Rio in along with the other Japanese women from that, I think, that promotion they're partnered with, that ICE promotion. I'm hoping that with Rio being champion, that we don't get a similar scenario that we got when Akira Hokuto became the inaugural WCW Women's Champion around 96 and 97. Because when she became champion instead of Medusa, aka Alundra Blaze, the Women's Championship was never really seen that much. It was never seen at all. It was mostly defended in the Gaea promotion along with the WCW Women's Cruiserweight title. which, from what I understand, was made specifically for that promotion as well. So it was never really seen that much state-wise, except for the matches Akira Hokuto would have with Medusa. And Akira, long story short, she did lose the belt out to someone out there, and the individual that beat her was the second and final champion and holder of that championship. So I'm hoping AEW doesn't have a similar situation with Riho. I don't think they will, because if they do, that's a bad look. Look for the fact that you chose somebody that's working for another promotion in Japan, and you're allowing them to be your champion, and you don't, and as a result, you don't see your championship as much, or your champion as much because of that. I'm hoping they worked something out. I'm hoping they did. In fact, I believe they probably did, and we won't have a repeat of what happened in WCW. But yeah. Anyway, besides that, Rio does become the first inaugural champion. Then we get our main event, which is the 6-man between the Elite, Omega, which is like I said, we get our main event, which is the 6-man match between the Elite, which consists of Kenny Omega and the Young Bucks, Matt and Nick Jackson, and their opponents being Jericho and the team formerly known as LAX. I think they're going by PNP now, that being Santana and Ortiz. Good opening moments at first, with the Elite clearing the ring of Jericho and his partners. But then things start to get really interesting, because as Omega is about to join in the fun, kind of do his own suicide tope suicido, as they call it, tope atomico, if you will. Just as he's about to do his own little deal, all of a sudden the crowd erupts, and out of the crowd comes Jon Moxley, FKA Dean Ambrose in WWE. And and Omega, it's like he senses it. And I love Omega's reaction here. It's like he's about to, as soon as Moxley enters, it's like, and the crowd's erupting, it's like Omega just senses it. It's like he knows someone's behind him, and he knows who it is. And as soon as he turns around, Moxley attacks him. They brawl to the outside. Moxley throws him over the barricade. They brawl continuously into the crowd. They go into what's known as the VIP area, which I guess was reserved for people that won a sweepstakes or something. I don't know. And the brawl ends with Moxley using the Death Rider, or the Pendulum Switch, if you will, as it's known in AEW. It's known as the Death Rider. It's known as the Death Rider in New Japan. It's known as the Pendulum Switch in AEW, and I think in other independents that Moxley might show up in. But he ends up drilling Omega through a glass table, taking most of the brunt himself. As they go through the glass table. So Omega gets driven by the Death Rider / Pendulum Switch, by Moxley into the glass table. Moxley takes it back first as well. So they both take a good amount of damage. This leaves the match to resume or continue on as a handicap. So now it's the Bucks against Jericho and his team. The Bucks put on a valiant effort. There's a moment where I think it's Nick Jackson that gets a chance to shine. And he does. He ends up super kicking just about everybody in sight. So, yeah, like I said, he ends up kicking just about everybody in sight. Right? And the moment comes when the numbers are just too much for them, and Jericho's able to land, I think it's Nick Jackson with his Judas effect elbow, and get the win. And then afterwards, they continue to beat down on them, that being, Santana, Ortiz, and Jericho. Cody comes out to try to make the save and get some payback on Jericho. Sammy Guevara then comes out, and as Cody turns around, Sammy low blows him with a kick right to the nuts. It's just like Cody just turns around, and it is a moment. I don't know if it was botched or anything. I don't think it was. It's like Or maybe it was just a shock moment where Cody just turns around, wonders why Sammy's here, and he gets low blowed. So that allows Jericho to continue the beating on Cody, and then out comes Dustin. Dustin starts, cleaning house, and then as he's cleaning house, out of the crowd comes the debuting Jake Hager, FKA Jack Swagger in WWE, also known as Jake Strong in Lucha Underground, but mostly known as Jake Hager in Bellator right now, where he's undefeated in MMA. He comes in and he is just laying waste to all the baby faces. Laying waste to Cody, laying waste to the Bucks, he's laying waste to Dustin. In fact, he ends up hitting all his signature moves, his running across the ring to the corners and engulfing people with his splash, his running splash. He hits the Swagger bomb or the Hager bomb, I think, on Cody. And then Ortiz and Santana bring in this podium from ringside. And what Hager does is he lifts up Dustin and power bombs him onto he ends up powerbombing him onto the podium, and that's how the show ends, with the heels standing tall. And everybody's curious about this, like, what's going on? Why is Jericho why is PNP, formerly LAX, Guevara, and Hager aligning themselves with Jericho? What's going on here? Is this just a one-time deal to get people to tune in next week, which did work because it's gotten a lot of people to want to tune in to see what, to get some answers. What was it? No one really knows. And as a result, AEW ended up winning the night and the ratings for this week. And I think the only reason they won is because it's a new product, it's a new alternative to wrestling. And I think a lot of fans just wanted to see what they were going to bring to the table if they'd not seen AEW before then. So, anyway, that's just my review. But anyway, that's all I can say on AEW. I'm definitely going to be tuning in and DVRing just like I did this week, next week's Dynamite, and see what the end result is. Maybe we have an alpha club, an actual alpha club formed here with Jericho as the leader in AEW. So, with the storyline purpose to take over AEW. Maybe that's it. Who knows? But let me know what you guys think down below. What were your thoughts about Dynamite, AEW's first weekly episode for the new weekly show on TNT? What are your thoughts about TNT having wrestling again? Let me know down below. Comment if you like. And I'll talk to y'all later. Thank you all for watching.